Having a voice is a very important thing for me and for other people. And there are different ways to have a voice. And it's important to acknowledge and give space to other people. So I share my message for several reasons. The first is for myself, for the voice that I didn't have as a child. The second is for other victims and survivors to know you are not alone. Wherever you are in your healing journey, there is someone there beside you. Thirdly, for all the supporters, families and friends that haven't experienced abuse, but actually want to be able to ask questions and are not sure sometimes what to say or how to say it. And I just say, it's okay, just ask a question and we'll be honest into how we want to respond. The fourth and very most important reason is to raise awareness for proactive protection for our young people of today. They are our future, they're our leaders. And I'd like to see a day that as adults now, we can have these difficult conversations and open them even when we feel vulnerable. Yes, and I feel vulnerable today. And so I wasn't going to speak live. But actually, it's important because we open the pathway for young people to say, I need to talk, there's something I want to say. So I just want to take you back to when I was 16. And I lived in Beverly in a hostel. Christmas Day, I was sitting around the table, Christmas dinner, with about 5 other vulnerable young people. And we were having Christmas dinner. And it struck me when I was sitting around that table, who really knows who we are? Who really knows the story behind us and where we've come from? Because nobody's asked. So I'm going to give you a little insight into where I came from before I share my poem. One of my first memories is when I was 4. And I remember the door ringing, and in walked a police officer, smiley face. And she had about 2 or 3 other civilian people with her. I don't know where my father was on that day. It was just my mother and 2 younger siblings. The smiling police lady helped us into the back of the Black Maria and took us to Penge Police Station, to a very small room where there was just enough room for a big desk, a filing cabinet, and a wooden chair. It was one of those chairs where it went round you like a bucket with wooden spindles. Myself and one of my younger sibling was standing next to my mum with the youngest on her lap. After a while, we were taken away from our mum, and that's when we became scared. Obviously, my mum's reaction, we absorbed that. And everyone was very nice, but that's when we started our journey in care. Now, for most people, that would be awful, but actually, it was one of the best things that could have happened for me, and I speak for myself and not my siblings. We were taken to Avonstowe, which was a children's home in Crofton, Orpington, Kent, and we were there for 6 wonderful years. During that time, we had another sibling that came to join us when he was 6 months old. And my mum and dad continued to have 2 other children too. So every other weekend, 2 of us would go home regularly and visit my parents. When I was 10 in 1974, we got the wonderful news in the December that we were going back home to live with our mum and dad and all of our siblings together as a family. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that what we all want? Isn't that what society says is right? For 3 nights I had night terrors. I still remember those night terrors. I was comforted. I was cuddled. just never actually asked why. So we went home. I was 10. My mum will have been nearly 27, and suddenly she's got 6 children, 10 and under, with my dad. Within a year, I became the main carer, and another year, we had no gas or electricity. So by the time I was 13, luckily, some people found the courage to call the NSPCC. And I remember that man knocking on the door too. And I was able to guide him to the pub my mum and dad would be at. Well, if they weren't at that one, they'd be at the other one. It was a matter of fact. Isn't that what happens in every family? Thankfully, within a couple of weeks, we did go back into care. The 3 youngest went into care in Croydon because we were living there. But do you remember the police that took us in the Black Maria? We were under a court order. So we should have been protected. So we went back into care in Beckenham. At 15, I wanted to be part of a normal family. I wanted what other people have. Isn't that what we read about in books? And I was very lucky. I was fostered by my English teacher. I didn't know how to be part of that family. I might not have outwardly had behavioural issues, but there were some very simple things I just didn't know how to function. One of the things is I didn't know how to be looked after. I was the carer, so how could somebody else look after me? That was instinctive. Within a year it broke down. Hence, as an emergency, I went back into care for a week at 16. If you're not aware, and it's still the case now, legally you're only allowed in care until you're 18, and then you're on your own. So that's when I asked, well, if I'm going to live on my own, I may as well do it at 16 while I've still got some support. Hence, I ended up in the hostel. However, don't be sad for me, because they were the best things. There was another side that was happening. And I told you about the first memory I had at 4, being taken, or one of the memories, being taken by a police officer. What I haven't shared with you, and what nobody ever asked, was what else was happening. And I remember an earlier memory of when I just turned 4, or was turning 4, and that was the first time my father abused me. I can see that room now. I can see the images around the room. And actually, one of the images triggered me only 2 years ago, because it was an image on an advert for a famous beer. So all those changes, all those people in our lives, and nobody asked, and my dad continued to abuse us. Thankfully, in my second children's home, Auntie Helen, who ran that children's home, very strict, but she taught us about self-respect, and I remember her sitting down and having a conversation. She doesn't realise today how she gave me the permission to just say no. That changed a lot of things with me with my father. I'm not going to go into any more detail about abuse, because there's some things happening in the background. However, at 16, sitting around that kitchen table at Christmas with the other vulnerable young people, I knew that when I was in a better place, I would use my voice, as I said when I first started. I knew I'd survive. I'd been surviving since I was 4. That was something I knew how to do. Being vulnerable, that's harder. Looking after yourself, that's hard. Learning self-care, that's my number 1 priority now. It's not selfish, it's important. Physically, mentally, emotionally. It's not one thing, it's all of them. So something I'm going to share with you now is something that I wrote during one of my counselling sessions for Touching Base, because I do work with other survivors now, but to enable me to do that effectively, I have to make sure that I'm in the right place too. But I struggled to always connect with my inner child, with that young girl, because I was never that young girl. I've always been older. The other thing I was always struggling with is the messages, the things people say, intentionally, unintentionally, and sometimes through ignorance, and I mean that in the purest form. So this is called Don't Tell Me, Ask Me. Don't tell me I will be okay. Ask me how I am. Don't tell me to stop crying. Ask me why I am. Don't tell me you're doing it wrong. Ask me if I know how. Don't shout at me if you're angry. Ask me about it when you're calm. Don't punish me for trying to talk to you. Ask me gently, what do I want to say? Don't assume you know best for me. Ask me how I feel about it. Don't make me feel guilty for saying no. Ask me what's right for me. Don't talk about me when I'm in the room. Ask me my thoughts too. Don't tell me I'm bad. Ask me why I did it. Don't tell me to be strong. Ask me how you can help. Don't tell me to get over it. Ask me what I need. Don't judge me on what you have heard. Ask me about my story. Don't label me with your own beliefs. Ask me about my journey. Don't tell me, ask me, no matter how young I am. Don't tell me how I should be, ask me how it is. Don't tell me how I should act, ask me if I know. Don't tell me who I am, ask me who am I. Don't tell me to respect you, ask me what respect means to me. Don't tell me to hug you, ask me how I feel about it. Don't tell me to kiss you, ask me as I have a choice. I may be young and vulnerable, however I am older than my age. Ask me how it feels at times, so I can use my voice to speak out and be heard. That's my story to you.